Hi there, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is the third installment of my artificial harmonics instructional videos. If you haven't watched the first two, you might want to check those out before watching this one. The first lesson just explains the basic technique. The second lesson adds on to that and explains how to play scales by adding on a few hammer-ons and pull-offs. And this lesson will be an in-depth look into all the possible scales you can play with artificial harmonics. This is going to get pretty intense, but hopefully by the end of this video you'll be able to connect some dots and come away with some things to try out for yourself. I'm really just presenting raw information here, just like any kind of scale, arpeggio, chord, or like a phrase or a line. If you really want to hear how to incorporate it into your own playing, then I highly recommend doing some listening and checking out players like Lenny Breau, Ted Green, and Jody Fisher to hear how they use these harmonics in the context of a performance. Of course, also myself, shameless plug, check out some of my videos where I'm using harmonics, and I'll include some links. So when you talk about scales, another word that usually comes up is modes. And yes, that's pretty much what we're going to be doing here, using the concept of modes to organize the shapes of these harmonics. So if you don't already have a basic understanding of modes, or you just need a quick review, you might want to take a few minutes and do that now so you're somewhat familiar with the terminology. I have a PDF of all the shapes that I'll use in this video, and it's available for free download via a link in the description. And I highly recommend checking it out because things might get a little confusing, and you might want something to look at for reference. So I'm going to start off with page 1 of the PDF, and that's the major modes. And I'm going to do these diatonically in the key of G, because I think that's a key most guitarists are comfortable with, and it starts off in what I consider to be the sweet spot for artificial harmonics, which is kind of like the 3rd fret to about the 8th or the 9th fret. I think that's just the most comfortable area to do this technique. Now if you glance over all these shapes, you will see at the top of each box there's 6 dots going across the neck. That's your starting shape. Okay, that's the shape you have to grip initially. And sometimes it's just a bar that can be done with one finger. Other times you'll have to adjust a couple of notes and use additional fingers. I'm not including any specific fingering on the page because everyone's hands are different, and I just say figure out what works best for you. Do what you got to do to hold the shape. I will say you do need to have at least your pinky free, because the 2 additional notes in parentheses are notes you're going to add on through hammer-ons and pull-offs. Okay, this is the cascading Lenny Breau effect from lesson 2. All right, so starting off with G Ionian. This is going to be at the 3rd fret, so my first finger is barring across the 3rd fret, and then my middle finger and my ring finger are on the D and the G strings to get those 2 notes. You may be able to do that with just the middle finger, and if you can, that's great. but for me personally, it's not very comfortable, so I use 2 fingers. And then my pinky is free to hammer on to the B and the E strings to get those additional notes. And then we just plug in the same pattern we've been doing for the past 2 videos. And so I'm starting with the D string. I'm going to play the natural note and then artificial harmonic, and we just alternate all the way up. So it sounds like this. And then coming down, I just use the pull-offs. Okay. And you may notice that I'm calling this Ionian, but I'm actually starting 1 note lower because I'm starting with that D string, so I'm really starting on the F sharp. And then, the G, which would be the first note of the Ionian scale, is actually the second note I'm playing. I'm labeling these modes by the grip. So in this case, the starting shape, the lowest note I'm fretting is G. I think that's just easiest to remember. But yes, keep in mind that when you play these shapes and you do the pattern of alternating natural notes and artificial harmonics, you're actually starting 1 note lower if you start all the way at the bottom. So just something to keep in mind as we go through these. So yes, the Ionian. Now, something else you may notice about this shape in particular, the notes we're playing, we have F sharp, G, and then B, and then C, and then we continue up D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. Okay, so the first couple of notes again, just like that. And yeah, we have that C down in the lower part of that chord, and it rings out, as we go through the pattern. And, that's the 4th degree of the scale, which, when you think about like G major, if you have a G major chord, G major 7, something like that, typically you want to, avoid the C in a voicing like that. But in this case, we have to include it for the sake of the pattern. It's not good or bad. I'm just pointing it out, and we'll come back to that later. But overall, you still do get very much a G major sound from this shape. So that's the Ionian. Now moving on to the next box, we have Dorian. So this is going to be at the 5th fret, and I'm just barring right across like that. And now I'm going to do the pattern. Hammer on with my ring finger on the B string and my pinky on the high E string, and then pull off. Okay. Just like that. This one, if you think A Dorian, second mode of G major, yes, this does have a kind of an, A minor foundation, because these first couple of notes are just A minor pentatonic. So this one really does give you, a very, very good Dorian sound. So there's your Dorian mode. Moving on to Phrygian. That's what you got. Again, another bar right across. So yeah, you may notice that these minor modes are easier because they just start off with a bar. The other modes, the major modes, you have to add on a few other notes. So maybe minors are easier to start off with, to get used to this idea of playing scales. But yeah, here's Phrygian again. So there I'm using actually my middle finger and my ring finger because both of those are free, and just like that, same pattern, same idea as the other two, and there's your Phrygian mode. Moving on to Lydian, let's see, this one, again, I'm barring across, but then I have to add 3 extra notes at the 9th fret. So I'm barring across the 8th fret, and then I have to do the 9th fret of the A string, the D string, and the G string. Now sometimes I can get that with my middle finger, but usually that's when I play this shape lower on the neck. Up here it's a little bit trickier. Let's see if I can do it. Yeah, I can. Got it there. I do bump into the B string a little bit, but let's see. Yeah, so there's the Lydian. Now if you can't get that with the middle finger, then you can start off barring the middle finger and then sneak your ring finger behind it for that note on the G string. So it gets a little bit smushed in there, but I find that actually works okay, and then your pinky just has to take care of the 2 notes on the, with the hammer-on, so, oops, sorry. All right, so there's your Lydian shape. All right, moving on to Mixolydian. This is D Mixolydian, so I'm barring across the 10th fret, and then I have to add 1 note on with my middle finger, like that. And this is getting a little bit high up on the neck. I don't typically do harmonics this high. It's kind of out of the comfort zone, or the sweet spot, as I like to call it. Also, if I go up any higher, I'm going to run out of frets, so I'd have to be kind of estimating where those frets are. But it's certainly possible. There's nothing wrong with, you know, going as high as you want, especially if you have more frets than I do. But it does get a little bit trickier, and also the string, you know, when you're making it this short, it just feels a little harder. You have to, you know, just keep that in mind, you know, as for the feeling in your right hand. But again, I want to stay in G for now, just to keep things simple. So we're going to power forward. Here's D Mixolydian. Try that again. All right, so pretty simple. 2 free fingers to hammer on. So yeah, Mixolydian. Aeolian is getting, again, very high up. So this is going to be the 12th fret. All right, that went surprisingly well. Again, just a bar right across, and then I have, you know, 3 fingers to hammer on with, and I'm using my ring finger and my middle finger. So middle finger on the B string, ring finger on the high E string. Where is it? There we go. So there is Aeolian. Now for Locrian, I'm actually going to move down the octave. I could, you know, continue to play it up here, but this is a little too high for me, and I think it's just going to be better if I move down the octave. So I'm starting this now at the 2nd fret, and the thing about Locrian, it's the mode with the minor 7 flat 5 chord shape, or, you know, just has a flat 5 in general. So unfortunately, that makes us change this starting shape, and now instead of a nice bar, or, you know, something we can add on, you know, going up, we actually have to change the B string and reach back here and grab this note. So again, it's that's the flat 5 right there, so it's an important note, and that really makes it hard to play the cascading effect. So, you know, if I were really to try it out, it would sound something like this. I kind of have to keep my pinky free for the moment here. So that pinky has to jump, you know, between both strings, and that's really uncomfortable. And frankly, I don't do that. I don't do that ever. Instead, what I do is I just pick any of those dots, and I'll use that as my Locrian sound. So even just that starting shape, you know, that as a, you know, chord itself sounds really great with the harmonics. You know, or I can, you know, play any of these dots, you know, and kind of just, you know, experiment and find what sounds best. But anyway, yeah, for the Locrian, again, I'm not really playing the scale, or I'm not doing the cascading effect. I'm just kind of picking 6 notes and going with those. Then I also have a an alternate Locrian shape, which is the final box on this page. And that one I'm just, you know, varying the shape a little bit. So now I can bar across, but the problem is, well, it's not really a problem, but I only have one note to add on, and that would be the note on the high E string. So I'm not hammering on to the B string here. Let's see. Also, that is a little bit tricky trying to sneak the pinky in there. Sometimes I lose that shape, but it is certainly a possibility. You can experiment for yourself and see what works. All right, so those are all the major modes. And yes, they are all diatonic to the key of G. So really, these are just a bunch of G scales, or at least, you know, groups of notes from the key of G being played in various ways. So because they're all the same notes in the same key, you can kind of mix and match and do a little bit of experimentation. For example, I mentioned before the you know, what I'm labeling as the Ionian mode. Actually may not work that well as an Ionian, because it has that, you know, the C in the low in the chord, which kind of, you know, gives it not the best foundation for like a G Ionian sound, because, you know, C would be the 4th degree, typically over a, you know, over a 1 chord, like a 1 major 7, so G major 7. Typically, when I play G major 7 voicings, you know, I'm not putting in that C, and I'm not going to like emphasize that C if I'm going to play something over that chord. So again, maybe not the best Ionian sound, but, you know, perhaps it could work as something else, such as Lydian. So now, you know, if I'm in, again, key of G, C major 7, that's the 4 major 7. Well, now this really sings. So that's a great Lydian sound. Again, I'm labeling it the Ionian shape, but it can certainly, you can superimpose that over a C major 7 chord and get a great Lydian sound. Of course, you also have the Lydian shape up here. So that's a little bit higher up. It kind of gives you a, you know, different sound, different range of notes. So you do have some options, and you could actually, you know, again use any of these shapes because they're all diatonic. They're all technically C Lydian. You know, it just depends on the context of the chords being played. But my point is, you can experiment and, you know, see which shapes sound best where. Another thing is trying to find a good Ionian sound. So if I have that G major 7 chord, you know, the 1 major 7. So what will sound good over that? Well, how about the Phrygian? You know, that's a pretty friendly, yeah, that's a pretty friendly scale shape right there, or a friendly group of notes. Especially if I'm, you know, delicate with that C on top right here. Oh, sorry. So that could work well as an Ionian shape. Another one could be the Locrian. So as I said before, the Locrian is a little bit different. You know, we're kind of just picking and choosing 6 notes. We're not really worrying about the scale, so I could do something like this. And that is a great texture, you know, for like a G major 7 chord with a bunch of color tones. All right. So there's me just putting the bass in there. So all I'm doing here is I'm just barring across the 2nd fret, and I'm putting my middle finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, just like that, and that's just me putting my middle finger on the 3rd fret of the low E string to give myself a G root. So again, it's all about experimentation, and that's why it's so important to really understand what notes you're playing in these shapes. You know, think about what notes are being emphasized, which are the stronger tones, which notes are ringing out. Really the same as, you know, if you were to play over a chord progression like diatonically in G. Yeah, you're playing all the same notes, you're playing just a bunch of G scales in various manners, but for each chord, you're targeting, you know, and emphasizing select tones, and you're really trying to bring out the most color in the harmony. So same thing goes for these harmonics. Now, something else, so as I mentioned, E Aeolian was up really high, up here at the 12th fret, and again, I run out of frets to play. Also, you know, it's a little bit high up for this. It's a little bit high up, you know, the sound is starting to get a little dead. You know, again, it's out of the sweet spot, so the strings are very, you know, when I play up here, I'm making the strings very short, a little tougher to generate those harmonics. So instead of, you know, going up here for E Aeolian, if I have, you know, if somebody's playing E minor chord, or if I have a bass player, I can pick any of these other shapes and get an E Aeolian sound. So for example, E minor chord, how about Phrygian? And, you know, even I could leave my low E string open and then just do the pattern on 5 strings. There we go. How about the next one up? This would be Lydian, so how about I leave that low E string open? Let's see here. So and that actually right there is just an E minor scale. That is literally. So once again, that is. There you go. So if you're having fun up to this point, then you're really going to love what's coming up next. We are going to do the melodic minor modes using artificial harmonics. And melodic minor, of course, is a very common scale in jazz. It's really good to know for improvising, and it is very useful to be able to pick out, you know, where it's used in jazz progressions. So just like any scale, you can derive modes from melodic minor, And yeah, we're going to use artificial harmonics to do that. So I'm going to start off in the key of G, or at least G melodic minor. So I'm starting at the 3rd fret again. And eventually I will change keys this time, and that's just to stay within the sweet spot, just because I want you to really hear the sound of each of these modes. So let's start off. Again, I'm going to be at the 3rd fret here, barring across, and then I have to put my middle finger on that D string. And then we just run up the scale with the same pattern. So let's see. There we go. G melodic minor. Very nice sound. Moving on to the next box, the next mode, Dorian flat 2. So yeah, this is a bar right across, and then so I hammer on with my ring finger on the B string, my middle finger on the high E string. Dorian flat 2, the 2nd mode of melodic minor. Moving on to the 3rd mode, Lydian augmented. This is B flat, Lydian augmented. So here I am barring across the 6th fret, and then I am playing the A string, G string, and A string, D string, and G string with my middle finger, just kind of trying to flatten as much as I can to get that bar, and then I'm sneaking my ring finger behind my middle finger onto the B string to get that note there. And then I'm using my pinky for both the hammer-ons. So it sounds like this. Really great sound. B flat, Lydian augmented. All right, moving on to the 4th mode. This is C Lydian flat 7, or Lydian dominant, and barring across the 8th fret. And then I'm using my middle finger on the A string, my ring finger on the G string. Here we go. Oops, sorry. So C Lydian flat 7. All right. Now I am going to change to C melodic minor. Okay, so we left off at Lydian flat 7. C melodic minor sounds, you know, that's the tonality. The 5th mode of C melodic minor would be G. So this is G mixed Lydian flat 13. Okay, and again, I'm just trying to stick within the sweet spot so I don't get too high up. And this is just going to be a much clearer sound. So again, this is G mixed Lydian flat 13. All right, so using my ring finger to hammer onto the B string, my pinky to hammer onto the high E string. Alrighty. G mixed Lydian flat 13. Moving on to A Locrian natural 2. Now, this is a, again, this has a flat 5 in the scale, so it's a minor 7 flat 5 chord. And because of that, again, we have, we really can't play the cascading type of scale here because we have to go one note back on the B string. But again, we still get that nice foundation, you know, of the shape. If you want to try to play the additional notes, you can. It's a little bit of a hassle. Let's see here. So, oops, sorry. Yeah, I don't know if that's really practical at all, but I gave it a shot. Didn't quite work, but once again, you can just pick and choose any of those dots. So how about this one? So This is me with the pinky on the upper note there on the high E string. That's a nice sound. That's pretty cool. And moving on to the next box, again, I'm giving an alternate option for this Locrian Natural 2. This is a bar. It's friendly, similar to the other option for regular Locrian. Again, this time I only have one note to hammer on the top string, so that works pretty well. So there are your two options for Locrian Natural 2. So that's a Locrian Natural 2. Moving on to the last one, this is B altered dominant. So this is the a big scale in jazz. You know, it's a very common chord scale for dominant chords because it has all the tensions. The problem with this one is, again, it has a flat 5 in it, so because of that, well, there's actually two notes that are they're behind the that you have to move back in this shape. So it's very tough to even grip that in the first place, and very tough to throw on those cascading. I'm actually able to grab the G string and the D string with my ring finger there, but again, not the most practical scale, not the most practical time to be trying to do those hammer-ons. But once again, you can just pick and choose any of these notes. And a really good shape that I like to do a lot is the final box on this PDF. This is just basically a big B7 chord. It sounds great just, as a chord, but you can use your harmonic technique to get that one, and I think that's fantastic. So really what this chord is, if you just take the bottom 4 notes, that's a B7 sharp 9. So you've probably seen this before. It's the the Jimi Hendrix chord shape. And then if you take that shape and you bar the pinky, you get a B7 sharp 9 flat 13. Well, that's all that's happening here. If I go up to the B string, and then in this case I just have one more string to throw on top, so I get a sharp 9, a flat 13, and a flat 9 on top there. And again, works very well with the harmonic technique. So that is I think that's your best option for altered dominant. But again, you can experiment and see what works best for you. So just like the major modes, these melodic minor boxes are pretty flexible and can be mixed and matched to get some different sounds in different chord contexts. The thing about melodic minor is it's a very colorful scale, and it's pretty hard to make it sound bad. So let's take an example like D7 sharp 11, and let's see if we can find some good options for this. So D7 sharp 11, that's going to be the Lydian flat 7 scale. We have that sharp 11 with a dominant chord, so Lydian flat 7 or Lydian dominant. Now, if I do the Lydian dominant shape over D, or at the 10th fret here, it's not bad. It's a little bit high up, so it's getting a little hard to navigate up here, kind of running out of frets. So I might want to find something lower, in my comfort zone. So I know D is the 4th degree of an A scale, so in this case it would be A melodic minor. And all I have to do is just find an A melodic minor shape that's comfortable, and I can just do the first mode, so just the regular old melodic minor, the first box on the page here. So there we go. And over a D7 chord or like a D9 with a sharp 11, that sounds really good. There's your Lydian dominant sound. Again, thinking modally, using, you know, another option within a melodic minor. So there you go. Let's see. So how about another example? Let's do E. Let's do an E7 altered chord. So, you know, E7 chord with a couple altered tensions. You're probably thinking altered dominant, one of the most common uses for melodic minor. So you go to the altered dominant shape in E. It's pretty high up once again. Kind of guessing at those frets there, and maybe not quite the sound you're looking for. So let's find something lower. So all you got to do is think, okay, E altered dominant. I know that's F melodic minor. So I could just come down here and play F melodic minor at the first fret. Try that again. That works great. It's a little bit low. I don't have too much of a problem playing down here at the first, second fret, but let's say I want to find something, again, in the comfort zone. So I can just pick any of these F melodic minor modes. Let's try the B flats. This is, you know, the B flat Lydian flat 7 shape. There we go. Same notes as E altered dominant. And just a much more, you know, accessible shape to play over that chord with these harmonics. So there you go. I could even, you know, maybe try the A flat, or the A flat Lydian augmented. In fact, you could mix and match, or you could do two, you know. So there you go. There's some good options for something in E. So check out this chord progression. D9, okay, to G7 altered. This is a like a flat 13, flat 9 to a C major 7. All right, so D9, G7 altered, C major. This is like a 6/9. It's basically a 2-5-1, or a variation on a 2-5-1. The 2 is a dominant chord. It's a secondary dominant. It's like the 5 of 5 leading into the 5. Again, the 5 resolves to the 1. So typically over this type of progression, a very good choice is melodic minor. So over this 2, you could play a Lydian flat 7 scale, like, and then over the G7 altered, of course, altered dominant, resolving to the 1. In this case, I'm actually going to go ahead and play Lydian, just to keep things hip, so, you know. Alright, so there's the sound I'm going for. Let's try it with harmonics. So over the 2, again, Lydian flat 7, so this is D9, so I'm looking for D Lydian flat 7. Well, we can do what we just did before. A melodic minor right here. Moving on to G7 altered dominant. G altered dominant is A flat melodic minor, so that works out really well. I can play that right here at the 4th fret. And then into C major, or like C Lydian, I can do my, you know, G Ionian shape from before. All right, so here we go with the harmonics. So So there you go. You play chord progressions and throw in those harmonic textures just like that. And in this case, it works out really nicely, nice transitions into each other. Okay, we have a couple more scales to get through, like harmonic minor and harmonic major. So the rest of this video is just going to be me kind of skimming through those. Of course, there are more scales that exist, and you can certainly seek out how to play them with harmonics. But these four, primary parent scales: the major, melodic minor, harmonic minor, and harmonic major. Those are the four, sounds that are most prevalent in jazz, which is where I use these artificial harmonics. And really, the major and melodic minor are the ones I use most often. There are a couple of cool shapes in these harmonic minor and harmonic major modes, but I don't use them that often. So I'm just going to go through the rest of these shapes. Hopefully you'll find something interesting in here. And then I have a couple of bonus scales, and we'll see what happens after that. So this is page 3 of the PDF harmonic minor modes. And I'm gonna do the same thing I did with melodic minor. I'm going to start off in G, and then I'll switch to C, when it gets too high. And hopefully by this point, you're starting to get used to fretting some of these shapes, and you're seeing similarities in the fingerings. So I'm not going to go into as much detail from shape to shape and which fingers to use. I'm going to let you figure that out for yourself going forward. Hopefully that will speed things up a little bit. So just do your best to keep up, and let's get started here with G harmonic minor. So this is at the 3rd fret, and here we go. G harmonic minor. There we go. Moving on to A Locrian natural 13. So Locrian implies that there's going to be a flat 5, and indeed there is. So we start off with the same, Locrian shape we've done before. And really, the hammer-ons just don't work here. It's too awkward of a motion for the pinky. You just can't get that smooth. And frankly, the shape doesn't really, lend itself that well to this particular mode, this Locrian Natural 13. But if you go one box over, I do have an alternate shape that works pretty well. And, sorry. I think that captures the sound of the mode nicely. Oops. So there's just one hammer on there on the top string, and yeah. So that, I think, is the best option for Locrian Natural 13. Moving on to B flat augmented major. It's going to look like this. So there you go. Okay, moving on to Dorian sharp 11. Okay. All right. I am now going to switch to C harmonic minor. So that's the sound. All right. So there we go. So we left off the 5th mode. So the 5th mode of C melodic minor is G Phrygian dominant. And yeah, it's going to sound like this. Pretty classic dominant sound. All right, so there's G Phrygian dominant. Moving on to A flat Lydian sharp 9. Here we go. A little bit tricky. Sometimes I can bar that the A string, the G string, and the D string with my middle finger here. Let's see. Maybe not. No, I couldn't do that. So just do whatever works for you. Really nice sounding shape, just a little tough to grab. And then the final shape here is the Altered Dominant Double Flat 7. And yeah, this one is pretty crazy. You know, it has a flat 5, so it is very tough to get the get the cascading effects. Yeah, it just doesn't quite work. But again, you can pick out some notes, you know, that work for you here. Just any of those dots on the page sound pretty good. And finally, we have Harmonic Major. Now, if you're not familiar with this scale, it's just the major scale with a flat 6. So another way to look at it would be a harmonic minor scale with a raised third. You just make it into a major scale. You know, harmonic minor, minor third, major. Anyway, it has some really cool modes, some cool sounds, and we're going to see how the harmonics work. So starting in G, and I'm going to do the same thing as before. I'll change to C when it gets too high. But here is G Harmonic Major. Alrighty. Definitely a cool sound. Dorian flat 5. Again, flat 5, so we have to start off with this shape. And again, you can just kind of pick and choose, you know, some different dots and see what works best. Try some different combinations. And of course, you also have this alternate shape, which is going to look like this. Oops, sorry. Just like before, one hammer on that top string. So that is A Dorian flat 5. All right, moving on, we have B Altered Dominant Natural 5, and this is a bit of an odd shape. I'm not sure. It's just kind of uncomfortable, and it's not the smoothest sounding thing. You really have to bar that ring finger across those 4 strings. But let's see if we can do it here. Yeah, a little hard to pull off there when you're coming down. That's okay. You could leave off the low string and, you know, just do 5 strings up. You know, and actually in this case, since we're in B, you have a how about that? You know, you can do the natural harmonic at the 19th fret. That just happens to work out right there. You know, so there you go. Again, that really only works for B here because of that natural harmonic. But anyway, I just thought that was kind of cool. Moving on to C Melodic Minor Sharp 4. This is the 4th mode. So here we go. Melodic Minor Sharp 4. There you go. Okay, now I'm going to change to C Harmonic Major just to stay within this comfortable zone. So C Harmonic Major. There's the tonality. So we left off on the 5th degree. That's going to be G, and we have Mixolydian flat 9. So pretty nice sound. All right, so there's G mixed Lydian flat 9. Next up we have A flat Lydian augmented sharp 9. It's a crazy name, don't get too psyched out. It's really just, you know, a C major sound over an A flat bass, so you get this. Let's try that again, a little bit tricky to grab. There we go. There you go, A flat Lydian augmented sharp 9. And the final mode of harmonic major is Locrian double flat 7. And so this is B, Locrian double flat 7. And this one has 2 notes behind the bar, so to speak. So it's, again, just like any time that happens, it's very tough to, you know, it's very tough to get that, to add those hammer-ons. And really, unfortunately for this one, there's no alternate shape because of that double flat 7. We have multiple notes, you know, behind the bar. So really just pick the dots, you know, do what you like, find some good combinations. Here's a nice one. This is like an E7 sharp 9 flat 13. And I'm just adding that B onto the bass here. So that's one cool shape that comes out of there. Let's see here, can I do this? Let's see. Yeah, so there's some cool possibilities in there. Just try some different combinations and see what you come up with. All right, we have 2 bonus scales to get to, and these are not part of any system of modes or anything. They are standalone scales that sound pretty cool on their own. And you may have heard of them. One is the whole tone scale. The other is the diminished scale. Both good to know. And I'm going to start off with the whole tone scale. So this is the final page of the PDF. And you can see that first box right there. So go ahead and grab that shape. I'm doing this at the 3rd fret. Sounds good on its own as a chord. And you may recognize within this shape, there's the, if you just look at 5 strings, it's a dominant 9 sharp 11. All right, so if you're familiar with that chord, you should recognize that. And then all I do is I just bar across with my 1st finger to get that 6th string at the 3rd fret there. And that's what I got. So I'm using all 4 fingers. There's no hammer-ons or pull-offs with this thing. But what's going to happen is we're just going to move it up and down stepwise, so 2 frets, you know, a whole step on the guitar. And I'm just going to do the pattern here, and then I'm going to move it up. It kind of gives you that whole tone effect, you know, moving up a whole step like that and then down. So there you go. That's how I like to get a whole tone sound with these harmonics. I think that shape is pretty cool. And to wrap things up, we have the diminished scale. So this is actually something I figured out especially for this video, and really only a couple days ago, so this is still pretty new for me. And you know, as I was going through all my other scales and modes, I didn't have anything for the diminished scale, so I came up with this, and it's a doozy. It is probably the toughest thing in this entire video, and my hand is pretty tired from playing all the other shapes. Probably should have done this one first, but we're going to see what happens. I'm going to show you how it goes, and let's hope for the best. So let's say you have a C7 chord, you know, with some diminished tendencies. You want to use that half-whole diminished scale. And you want to use artificial harmonics. Well, here's how it goes. Your first finger, you can bar it at the 2nd fret across 4 strings. Then you got to play the low E string and the A string with your middle finger. So you got to smush them both under your middle finger, and you got to start off with that. And then you got some extra hammer-ons and pull-offs here. You can see the extra notes in parentheses. There's 2 more. So really we're just extending that cascading idea, you know, to the beginning of the pattern. All right, and the pinky's going to hammer on at the 4th fret, and the ring finger is going to hammer on at the 3rd fret. All right, so it's going to look something like this. Let's see if we can pull this off. There we go. Not bad. A little bit of a mind trick there with the ring finger and pinky alternating. That's that's a little bit tricky to figure out at first, but so I don't have it perfect yet, but I think you get the idea. And the cool thing is that is the actual that is the actual scale that I'm playing here. You know? So that is, an actual section of that scale shape. Well, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope you learned some new things. These artificial harmonics have always been one of my favorite things. I really love incorporating them into my playing and my jazz guitar arrangements. And I'm happy to share my insights and my experience, with anybody who's interested. I know this video was a lot. It's everything I've got, I didn't leave anything out. But just take things slowly, practice these shapes little by little, really make sure you're getting the technique, you're playing it properly, smoothly, and slowly at first, and just give it some time, be patient, and I'm sure some good things will happen. If you have any thoughts or questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and please consider supporting me on Patreon. A link to my account can be found in the description. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.